he has dedicated himself to serve others, both current and future generations, and those whose memory must not be neglected.
The monarchy didn't see this coming. Prince William just made a move so unexpected, it's left Buckingham whispering in shock. Behind the tall gates of the palace, something is shifting. Prince William, not yet king, has taken a bold step that's sending shockwaves through the royal family. He didn't make a speech. He didn't hold a press conference. But his actions? They're speaking louder than words. He's changing how the royal family works, starting with two young royals who never asked to be part of this drama. Lady Louise and James, the Earl of Wessex, once lived peaceful lives away from the cameras. But now, they've been pulled into the center of a silent storm. And not by choice. William has always known the crown was his someday, but what no one expected was how early he would begin shaping the future. Even with King Charles still wearing the crown, William has already started leading from the shadows. He's making quiet decisions, drawing clear lines, and sending a message that things are going to be different when his time comes. One of those messages? A smaller royal family, a tighter circle, and a new rule. If you're not working for the crown, you don't get to wear it. And that's where Louise and James come in. They're part of the royal bloodline, yes, but under William's quiet plan, that's no longer enough. Their royal titles, once guaranteed by birth, are suddenly in question. There's been no royal order, no public memo, but the change is happening. People close to the palace have noticed. Invitations have stopped. Titles are missing. And the quiet distance is growing louder. William is building a new version of the monarchy, one that doesn't rely on tradition, but on purpose. One where family ties don't mean automatic power. And while most of the world hasn't caught on yet, the press is starting to ask questions. Why were Louise and James left out of recent royal events? Why hasn't the palace commented? Why now? And what does it mean for the future of the crown? Slowly but surely, this quiet decision is turning into a storm. And for the royal family, it's one they can't hide from much longer. But what triggered this drastic shift? To find out, we must step back into the lives of two royals raised far from the spotlight. They were born royal, but never raised that way. Now, the quiet choices of the past are crashing into William's bold new future. From the very beginning, Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie made a different kind of choice. Unlike others in the royal family, they didn't want their children shaped by crowns, titles, or flashing cameras. They wanted something more fragile, more valuable privacy. For Lady Louise and James, the Earl of Wessex, that decision changed everything. While cousins like William and Harry grew up in the constant glare of royal life, Louise and James were sheltered from it. Their parents didn't just step away from tradition, they broke it, quietly and without regret. At their home, in Bagshot Park, royal routines were replaced by normal ones. Horse riding, homework, weekend dinners, this was their world. There were no daily photographers outside their gates, no media frenzy surrounding every birthday. Sophie had drawn a clear line in the sand. Her children would grow up grounded, not grand. And the palace allowed it at first. Queen Elizabeth herself reportedly supported this private path. It was understood, perhaps even admired. So for years, Louise and James faded into the background while the rest of the royal family filled headlines. Their public appearances were rare and calculated. A quiet wave here, a respectful bow there, but no speeches, no statements, no scandals. For a long time, the world didn't even recognize their faces. That wasn't an accident. It was the result of Sophie's iron-willed plan. She didn't want her children to grow up as symbols. She wanted them to become people. And in one rare interview, she confirmed exactly that. Louise and James, she explained, had the option to use royal titles, but they were being raised to live ordinary lives, to build careers, and possibly step entirely away from royalty. For years, it seemed to work. The press stayed away. The children thrived. And the royal family, dealing with scandals and exits elsewhere, seemed grateful for two relatives who caused no trouble at all. But nothing in the monarchy stays untouched forever. Louise and James may have been protected from royal expectations, but they were never free from royal blood. And now, that blood is pulling them back into a storm they didn't ask for. Because William's vision for the future doesn't include titles without service. It doesn't include quiet royals living normal lives. And as he draws a new line between those who stay in and those who stay out, Louise and James find themselves caught in the middle. A private childhood is clashing with a public reckoning, and suddenly, the peaceful life Edward and Sophie built is being tested. But just as their private life began to feel permanent, Prince William changed everything. He's not king yet, but William is already tearing down the old palace blueprint and redrawing the royal family's future. The world still sees Charles on the throne, but the hands shaping what comes next belong to Prince William. Behind palace walls, where tradition once ruled every breath, William is making quiet but bold moves. He doesn't want to wait until he wears the crown to start leading. He's doing it now. And not with loud speeches or royal decrees, but with actions that cut deep. His plan? A leaner, more focused monarchy. One that doesn't depend on last names, but on real work and public duty. If you don't serve the people, you don't get to stand at the palace balcony. That's the future William is building, and it's already changing everything. This isn't just about cost or popularity. It's about trust. After years of scandals, whispers, and broken public faith, William knows something must change. The royal family can no longer afford to look bloated, privileged, and out of touch. He studied the headlines about Prince Andrew, about Harry and Meghan, about taxpayer money and royal silence. And he's come to one conclusion. The only way forward is to prove the crown still matters. That it works, that it serves, and that means cutting loose anyone who doesn't carry that weight. For William, the line is simple. Royal blood alone isn't a ticket to power. You either step up or step aside. And without saying a word, he's begun enforcing that rule. No formal press statements, no flashy edits to the royal website. Just invitations that never arrive. Titles that are quietly skipped over. Appearances that suddenly feel more exclusive. The shift is subtle but unmistakable. And Lady Louise and James are among the first to feel it. Once considered distant but accepted members of the royal fold, they now find themselves outside the circle that matters. Not because they made a mistake, not because they misbehaved, but because in William's eyes, they're not part of the royal engine anymore. They live quietly. They don't serve. They don't show up for public duties. And that makes them symbols of the old way he's determined to end. And yet, this isn't about punishing them. William's strategy runs deeper than that. He's trying to save the monarchy itself. In his eyes, the days of large royal families living in luxury while doing little are over. The future is smaller, faster, and closer to the people. It's about action, not ancestry. The fewer royals there are, the easier it becomes to protect the crown's image, to control the message, to rebuild trust. Still, even in its quietness, the change is shaking the walls of tradition. The public is beginning to notice the absences. Insiders are talking, and those left on the outside, like Louise and James, are being forced to ask themselves what it means to be royal in a family that no longer accepts silence as service. And while this change looks strategic, it feels deeply personal for one, royal in particular. She never chased power or fame, but now, Duchess Sophie finds herself forced to protect her children from the crown itself. For years, Sophie was the quiet heartbeat of the royal family. She wasn't in the headlines, she didn't command attention, but behind the scenes, she earned respect in a way few others ever did. She stood beside Queen Elizabeth with loyalty, never complaining, never seeking credit. Her work was steady, her voice calm, and her commitment to the monarchy unshakable. But even the most faithful can feel betrayed. And now, Sophie's silent dedication is being tested in a way she never saw coming. Because when Sophie chose to raise her children away from the royal spotlight, it wasn't rebellion, it was love. She believed the crown could be served in quiet ways. That royal life didn't need to come at the cost of peace. And Queen Elizabeth agreed. It wasn't just a family preference, it was a royal understanding. The late Queen supported Sophie's vision for Louise and James, a childhood free from palace pressure, without titles or duty forced upon them. But now, that promise is unraveling. As Prince William redraws the royal map, Sophie's children are being erased from it. Not with anger, not with scandal, just silence. Invitations not sent, recognition not given. Louise and James, once protected by choice, are now being pushed aside by change. And Sophie is watching it happen, powerless to stop it, but not silent about what it means. Behind the palace smiles, frustration is rising. In private conversations, among those she trusts, Sophie has begun to speak. Not loudly, not to the press, but with purpose. She's reminding people of the agreement that once was, the vision she shared with the Queen, and the fear she now holds that her children are becoming strangers in their own family. It hurts, because this isn't what she gave her loyalty for. Sophie never wrote tell-all books, never chased attention. She stood with the crown through chaos and calm, and now she's watching as her children, born of royal blood, are being treated like they don't belong. It's not about status, it's about respect, about whether the years of quiet service mean anything at all, about whether a promise from a queen still holds weight when a new vision takes over. And still, Sophie keeps walking forward, still shows up at royal events with grace, still supports the crown with dignity. But inside, she's fighting to protect a life she built with love, fighting to make sure Louise and James are not forgotten, not dismissed, not sacrificed in a plan they never asked to be part of. She doesn't want them dragged into a spotlight they were never raised for. But she also doesn't want them left in the dark. But while Sophie gently resists, the next move belongs to Louise and James. When she turned 18, the crown offered her a title. Lady Louise silently said no, and it shook the monarchy more than anyone admits. It could have been the moment that marked her official step into royal life. A title awaited her, the same one that most royals accept without question. Her Royal Highness wasn't just ceremonial, it was a mark of status, power, and responsibility. But Louise Windsor, the daughter of Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie, didn't take it. She didn't make an announcement. There were no headlines or royal declarations, just a quiet decision made behind palace doors. And in that stillness, she sent a powerful message. Her path would not be shaped by titles. What made that choice even more striking was Louise's deep connection to the royal family. She wasn't distant from it. She wasn't rebellious. In fact, she shared a rare and cherished bond with Queen Elizabeth. The late Queen saw something in Louise: grace, humility, and strength. Their time together wasn't just ceremonial. It was genuine. They spent hours driving carriages, a shared love passed down from Prince Philip. Louise wasn't just learning a skill, she was preserving a legacy. Philip had taught her. Elizabeth had watched with pride. Louise didn't grow up in the spotlight, but within the family, she was respected beyond her years. And even when she appeared at royal events, Louise never demanded attention. She didn't push herself forward. She didn't try to be seen. She walked quietly, with calm presence and sharp awareness. During the Queen's funeral, she stood strong, honoring the woman she'd loved and admired. No tears for the cameras, no staged performance, just quiet, authentic loyalty. People began to notice her not for what she wore or said, but for what she represented. In a royal family often overshadowed by scandal or spectacle, Louise became something different. A symbol of quiet strength. Her refusal of the royal title wasn't a rejection of her family. It wasn't a protest. It was a reflection of who she'd always been raised to be. From the start, Sophie had prepared her daughter for a normal life, one not defined by palaces or press. And when the moment came to choose between title and freedom, Louise stayed true to that vision. Her silence carried weight. In that moment, she became more than just a royal. She became a reminder that dignity doesn't need a title, and that sometimes walking away from power speaks louder than claiming it. But now the spotlight shifts to her younger brother, whose choice could shape the monarchy's future. At just 16, James stands at a royal crossroads. The decision he makes next could redefine what it means to be royal. He's been in the background for most of his life, a quiet figure walking beside his parents at public events, rarely speaking, never stealing focus. But now, James, the Earl of Wessex, is no longer just a boy growing up in a royal home. He's becoming the next potential symbol of a changing monarchy. And unlike his sister, who has already made her choice to step away, James's moment is still coming. What he does at 18 could send ripples across the entire royal family. Because this time, it's not just about tradition. It's about what the monarchy will look like in the world ahead. Lately, he's been appearing more often. At major events, national services, family celebrations, and royal engagements, James has stood tall beside Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie. Not as a silent child, but as a young man who seems to be observing, absorbing, and preparing. Many believe this isn't by accident. Those close to the palace suggest Edward is quietly guiding his son, laying the groundwork for a possible role within the firm. The Duke of Edinburgh title, now Edward's, is deeply tied to duty. And with that legacy, there may be pressure for James to follow in his father's steps. But unlike the old days, that path isn't automatic anymore. The media is beginning to notice. Headlines question whether James will accept his birthright when he turns 18. Will he claim the style of His Royal Highness? Will he embrace a public royal life, or walk the same quiet path Louise chose? These aren't small questions. In today's royal world, titles come with scrutiny, responsibility, and weight. For James, saying yes could mean stepping into full-time duty, becoming a face of the next generation of royals. Saying no could mean freedom, but also erasure from a family where visibility means value. What makes this more complicated is how symbolic James has become. He's the bridge between tradition and transition. He's the young royal who still has time to decide. And everyone from the public to the press to the palace is watching. If he accepts the role, it could suggest there's still space for the younger royals to serve, even under William's slimmed-down model. But if he declines, it could cement a new rule. Only the direct heirs count. And that would shut a door that may never open again. That's the pressure James faces. Not just choosing a path for himself, but making a decision that could define how many royals the public will see in the years ahead. He didn't ask for this moment. But now it's here. Quietly, steadily. It's coming toward him. But there's more at stake here than just titles. There's the future image of the royal family and the risk of a deeper divide. Without saying a word, Prince William has drawn a new line in the royal sand, and not everyone is standing on the inside. The old royal family was big, sprawling, and deeply traditional. A network of dukes, duchesses, cousins, and children, each one woven into the fabric of the monarchy simply by birth. But under Prince William's quiet leadership, that fabric is being trimmed, hemmed, and reshaped. His new model is one of sharp focus, a smaller team, tighter control, and fewer titles handed out by default. And the message behind that shift? If you're not at the heart of the mission, you're no longer part of the circle. It's not written in any public statement. It's not declared in headlines. But for those on the edge, the message is deafening. At the core of this inner circle now stand William, Catherine, and their 3 children. Their family isn't just central, it's the new standard. And everyone else? Slowly fading from view. Lady Louise and James, despite their royal blood, have found themselves outside of recent key events. Major ceremonies, photo calls, appearances. Meant to showcase the working royals, they're not there. Not because they've been officially removed, but because the invitations have stopped coming. They're not being punished. They're being reclassified, reduced to a quieter tier of royalty that no longer fits the future William envisions. Inside palace walls, this move hasn't gone unnoticed. There's a quiet tension rising, especially among long-standing insiders, who once believed the royal family's strength came from its unity. Some are uneasy. Others are confused. Few are brave enough to speak out. But behind closed doors, questions are growing louder. What does this new order mean for succession? What happens when the monarchy becomes so small that it loses its roots? And most importantly, what will it take to stay in William's trusted circle? Even King Charles, still seated on the throne, has raised eyebrows by doing nothing. His silence is being watched carefully. Is it support for his son's vision, or hesitation masked by diplomacy? Either way, Charles's refusal to intervene only adds fuel to the fire. If he disagreed, he could stop it. If he approves, he might be handing over more power than people realize. The monarchy has always survived on balance of duty, bloodline, and unity. But now, the scales are tilting. And those left on the outside, Louise, James, and others, are being reminded, not through confrontation, but through absence, that their place is no longer certain. The reshaping of the royal family isn't coming with thunder. It's coming like a shadow stretching across the palace floor, quiet, cold, and deliberate. No scandals. No scandals needed. Just strategic silence. And that silence is changing everything. As the palace adjusts to this new hierarchy, the emotional consequences begin to ripple beyond the gates. Louise and James didn't ask for this moment, but they now hold the power to quietly reshape the future of the monarchy. The royal family has always walked a fine line between tradition and change. For centuries, it survived by clinging to the past. But now, under Prince William's rising influence, the winds are shifting fast. His quiet revolution is rewriting what it means to be royal, less about titles, more about duty. Less about blood, more about purpose. And in the center of this transformation stand two unlikely figures, Louise and James. Not headline makers, not rebels, just two young people who never sought the spotlight, but suddenly carry the weight of a decision that could shape the monarchy's future. Louise has already made her choice. She walked away from the title she was offered, choosing peace over prestige. Her silence spoke louder than ceremony. She showed that dignity isn't something that has to be worn like a crown. It can live in stillness, in simplicity, in quiet strength. And in doing so, she drew a line of her own. One that said, "You can be royal without playing the royal game." But James, his choice still waits ahead. And it may matter even more, because James now stands where tradition and transformation meet. He is the test of William's vision. Will he step into the public role many expect? Or will he follow his sister's lead and choose a private life? That decision won't just define his future. It could signal the future of the entire royal brand. If he accepts a title, it may suggest the family still has room for those born into royalty if they are willing to work. If he refuses, it could mark the closing of a door, not just for himself, but for others who once believed royal birth meant royal place. Caught in the middle is Sophie, the mother who fought to give her children normalcy, and the Duchess who served the crown with grace. Her loyalty is unshaken, but her heart is torn, because what began as a promise of peace is now colliding with a changing palace strategy. She knows the world is watching. She knows every move, every appearance, every choice will be interpreted. And still, she stands firm, protective, proud, wary. But outside the gates of Buckingham, the real test may not come from within the family, but from the public. The monarchy's survival has always depended on public favor. If people believe William's strategy brings integrity and purpose, it may cement his legacy. But if it feels too cold, too calculated, if it feels like family is being pushed aside for image, it could backfire. And then, what began as a royal reset could become a royal fracture. As the monarchy teeters between tradition and transformation, one truth remains. The choices made by two young royals may echo for generations to come. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.